review of a detective. I worked this case that is creepy as shit. This guy was seriously sick. He would break into houses of couples, tie both of them up, and stack plates on the back of the male and threaten to kill him if he heard them fall. Then he sexually brutalized the female in the next room. He committed at least 60 serious sexual assaults against women. He would call his victims before and after each sexual assault. He would break in during the day when the couple wasn't home, unlock windows and doors so he could get in easier at night, then prepare bindings in several corners of the house to make his sexual assaults more convenient for him. Maybe the most disturbing case was when a town hall meeting was called to directly address the problem. One man stood up and chastised the husbands of the victims for not doing enough and how he would never let the stalker touch his wife. Him and his wife became the next victims, meaning the stalker was probably at the town hall meeting. We never caught the guy. So the story begins with Tom and his brother Matt leaving school when they were encountered by bullies. They were named Brad, Steve, and Malik. They always had a problem with Tom, so Tom normally ignored them. They taunt Tom to fight back, but Tom realized that it wasn't worth it. Him and Matt walked away. At home in their bedroom, Tom asked Matt, how far are they willing to go for attention? The next day, Tom and Matt are walking back home when they encounter the bullies. They taunt them, and Tom has had it and punches Brad in the face. After that, they gang up on them. Matt manages to escape, and knowing he can't take the three of them, he runs off to notify somebody about them. Tom is being beaten brutally with Brad pouring bleach on him and then sets Tom on fire. Steve and Malik are shocked and told Brad he's going too far. The bullies run away with Matt and company calling the ambulance. At the hospital, Tom wakes up recovering from his injuries. The doctor takes off the bandages and gives Tom a mirror to show him what he looks like. His parents look troubled. Tom is horrified of his new look. He had pale white skin with red lips. Tom is sad, but Matt humors him, saying he looks like a vampire. Tom asked Matt what happened to the bullies, and he replied, they were arrested, but later bailed out. Tom knew at that moment he wanted revenge. The doctor sends him home later that day. At his house, he puts on a white hood, sneaks out, kills Brad, Steve, and Malik, one by one. When he was finished, he sneaked back home, and his mother discovered him in bloody clothing. Tom's mom is surprised and was about to call the police. Tom tells her to stop, and when she ignores him, Tom stabs her in the back. He later kills his father and went after Matt too. He was sleeping and wakes up with Tom having a knife to his neck. Tom says, sorry, no witnesses. Matt replies, but Tom, we are Tom puts his hand on Matt's mouth and says, shh, go to sleep. Tom then stabs Matt. Tom runs from his house, never to return. Even to this day, the police have no idea who was behind these murders.
Monday, I came up with the perfect plan. No one even knew we were friends. On Tuesday, he stole the gun from his dad. On Wednesday, we decided to make our move during the following day's pep rally. On Thursday, while the entire school was in the gym, we waited just outside the doors. I was to use the gun, whoever walked out first. Then he would take the gun and go into the gym and start blasting. So I walked up to Mr. Johns, the guidance counselor, and shot him 3 times in the face. Fell back into the gym dead. Shots were deafening. We heard screams in the auditorium. No one could see us yet. I handed him the gun and whispered, your turn. He ran to the gym and started firing. Followed a moment after. He hadn't hit anyone yet. Kids were scrambling and hiding. It was mayhem. I ran behind him and tackled him. He struggled. I took the gun, turned it on him, killed him, closed his mouth forever. On Friday, I was anointed a hero. It was indeed the perfect plan.
A true story about the man in my backyard. My name is Enrique and I'm 15. The story is based on true encounters by me and my brother Manny, who is currently 12. This happened when I was 13. Me and my brother used to have a wardrobe filled with random costumes from Spider-Man to Indiana Jones, etc. We would always dress up and role play in our backyard, which was basically a big square if you looked at it from above. Anyways, on this particular day I was dressed as Indy and my brother was dressed as Woody from Toy Story. We were role-playing as if I was captured and Woody needed to save me or something like that. It doesn't really matter. It was autumn when the days started getting shorter and it turned dark really early. We were just about to jump from the window, surviving a massive explosion of dynamite behind us, when I heard a whistle coming from somewhere around us. We both heard it and started looking. Keep in mind it was dark at the moment. After we looked around, seeing nothing, we heard another whistle. Hey, over here! Said the man was leaning against the fence, staring at us with his eyes being red as if they were filled with blood. Now, me and my brother, we were both scared shitless. He was a middle-aged man wearing a brown leather jacket, dirty jeans, and some really old white shoes. His hair was long and greasy. My brother was really scared and held onto my arm, shaking in fear. He looked at the man and yelled, "Get off our fence, mister. I'll call my dad." He looked at me with an angry and frightening expression. What happened next was the thing that scarred me for life. The man jumped over the fence and started walking towards us. My brother started crying and I screamed for help. I was also crying as the man picked up the pace and I led my brother to the other corner of the backyard. We both screamed as he got closer and closer until I heard my dad scream from the porch, "Get the fuck away from my kids." My father was 52 at the time and I'd never seen him run so fast. He charged at the man and knocked him down. He started beating the man and didn't stop until he was knocked out cold. He then got up and ran over to us. My mom, my grandparents, my aunt, and my uncle ran outside in shock as they saw the man lying in the grass. Our mom ran over to us and cried along with us, relieved that we weren't hurt. My uncle and my grandpa held the man down as he tried to get up and run away, while my aunt called the police. After about 5 minutes, we heard the sirens. 3 policemen ran up into our garden, grabbed up the man, took him to the car, and arrested him. The other policeman came over to us, said that we'll have to come to the police department and make a statement. We went to the police station, made the statement, and went back home. Our parents, my brother, and me all slept in the same bed because we were all in shock. The next day, a detective came to our house, informed us he was a serious sexual offender. So grateful that my brother and I weren't harmed. I still don't know what would have happened if my family wasn't home. Every day I'd ride my bike up and down the trails behind my neighborhood. I'd be home by nightfalls most days. However, on one night I rode out a bit further than usual. On the way back, I decided to ride a trail from an area known as Rocky Glen. The live buffalo roamed and there was a large spring for them all to enjoy. I was riding back and I knew the end of the trail was coming up and I'd have to cross a stone bridge and up to the road to my house. It was dark at this time and all I had to use to see was the full moon. I was maybe a few hundred yards from it when I got a sharp pain in my left thigh. I stopped and looked around to see what just hit me. Then I heard a noise sounding like something hitting the ground hard in front of me. There was a rock about the size of a baseball running across the trail. I was so confused. I started to look up the side of the hill, and just as I turned my head I almost fell off my bike when another rock comes flying down and hitting the front of my wheel. Finally, my eyes adjusted to look and see someone very tall and dark, covered in hair, at the top of the hill, throwing things at me and screaming. I yelled I had a cell phone and I was going to call the police. I didn't actually have one as I didn't have a cell phone yet. This seemed to have pissed it off. He started charging down the hill at me. I, for obvious reasons, jumped on my bike and took off. Just as I crossed the bridge, I heard a huge splashing noise in the creek. It was a large rock that had been thrown. I was in the clear to go home, but was frightened all the way there. Went to the ranger station later the next morning and told a ranger about what happened. He said, "So you were attacked by Bigfoot?" I don't know what it was, but something was trying to hurt me out there. "Okay, Aaron, if any Bigfoot show up, I'll let you know." I just said fine and left. The very next week I was riding in the daylight. Kevin pulled up next to me and told me to get in. I asked why. He said he needed to show me something. We headed to the police department in town. Before we got out of the car, he turns to me and says, "I have to apologize to you. I'll be honest, I didn't believe you when you told me your story about being attacked. However, it's come to my attention that a couple was out in the same area last night and was attacked in the same way, saying they had seen a large, hairy creature throwing rocks and sticks and screaming at them. They called the police and they came out with some other rangers, including myself. I immediately thought about what you had told me. When we arrived, we started up the hill. Sure enough, we were having rocks and other things thrown at us. Guns drawn and yelling. 2 officers tackled a man to the ground. He was 6'5", tall, naked, and covered in mud, and had long hair and a large beard. He had escaped from a veterans center. Apparently, he thought he was back in Vietnam and he was trying to take out the enemy. He said I was very lucky because he was trying to kill me. We went inside so I could give the police my statement as to what had happened. They had him sent to a more secure facility somewhere else. To this day, I still get the shivers when I hike that trail, and I always keep my eyes open." It was 1 a.m. and Donald Rhodes sat in his dark living room. He hadn't moved for over an hour. incident earlier that evening kept playing over and over again in his mind. The light turned red, but he was in a hurry. An orange blur came from his right, and in a split second there was a violent jolt, and the bicyclist rolled across his hood and fell out of sight on the pavement. Lawrence blared angrily. He panicked, stepped on the gas, and screeched away from the chaos into the darkness, shaking and keeping an eye on all of his mirrors until he got home. Why did you run, you idiot? He'd never committed a crime before this and punished himself by imagining years in jail. His career gone, his family gone, his future gone. Why not just go to the police right now? You can afford a lawyer. And someone tapped on his front door and his world suddenly crumbled away beneath him. They found me. There was nothing he could do but answer it. Running would only make it worse. His body trembling, he got up, went to the front door, and opened it. The police officer stood underneath the porch light. Mr. Rhodes? Asked the grim officer. He let out a defeated sigh. Yes. Terribly sorry, but I'm afraid I have some bad news. Your son's bike was struck by a hit-and-run driver this evening. He died at the scene. I'm very sorry for your loss. I don't know why I looked up, but when I did, I saw him there. He stood against my window. His forehead rested against the glass. His eyes were still and light. He smiled a lipstick-red, cartoonish grin, and he just stood there in my window. My wife was upstairs sleeping. My son was in his crib. I couldn't move. I was frozen. I watched him looking past me through the glass. Oh, please no. His smile never moved, but he put a hand up and slid it down against the glass, watching me. With matted hair and yellow skin and a face through the window, I couldn't do anything. I just stayed there, frozen. Feet still in the bushes I was pruning. Looking into my home, he stood against my window. I watched as my soon-to-be mother-in-law held her daughter's hand as she walked down the aisle. Tears streamed down her face as the wedding march played in the background, reminding her in a few minutes she'd be watching me hold her daughter's hand and slipping on her ring. She walked up to the altar. I took hold of her hand, grinning from ear to ear. It was the happiest day of my life. My bride's mother got down on her knees and started begging. Please, I did what you asked. Just give me back my daughter. I glared at her. Shut up and stop ruining the moment. You sit back down and enjoy the ceremony. Maybe I'll tell you where I've hidden the rest of her body. Where are you? I screamed, panicked. Run through the abandoned farm. I can't find her. Not in the old house, not in the barn. I run into the empty field, heart racing. As I scan the area, I run into a mound of dirt, trip, falling to the ground, getting up, tripped over freshly tilled earth. Crouching down, I started frantically clawing with my hands, scooping handfuls of dirt. I hit something hard, wood. Are you there? I cried, pressing my ear to the wood. I hear muffled cries. I start digging again, but I realize it's taking too long. Looking around, I see a garden shed. I sprint to it. Ripping open the door, I see a shovel. Probably the same one the bastard buried her with. I grab it. Running back, I started digging with purpose. Soon the wooden box is exposed. I toss the shovel. Rub open the crate. She stares back at me, eyes wide. Bound, gagged, but alive. I sigh with relief. Thank God. I reach into my bag, pulling out my rag of chloroform. Crouch down, placing it over her face. She struggles, faints. Toss her over my shoulder. Ah, hell, my brother says as I walk back to the truck with a smirk. You found her. Yep. You almost had me, though. I laugh. All right. My turn. Where did you put her? Gesture to the creek area. Somewhere over there. Drowning's an issue, though. Jerk, he says, running off. I smile, watching him go.